Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be back with another young Indian, part of the Voice of the Young. Right now, we have with us Shikhar Amlani. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Shikhar.
Thank you so much, Mathur sir. So a bit about myself. I am Shikhar Amlani. I am a second year economics major at Motilal Nehru College, University of Delhi South Campus. And I love to speak. I am a debater by heart, and I love to act. I love to play football. And I have recently gotten into the world of finance and consulting. And this recent getting into the field of finance and consulting and everything that has been going on in everyone's life is something that I would like to talk about. And this might seem a bit preemptive and predictive, but the topic that I wanted to talk about in today's medium is pivots and what pivots mean in anyone's life and why pivots are very important, first of all. So, when I was discussing with my friends and when I was discussing with my parents what I should really talk about, um, there was no one concrete answer. It was always talk about economics or talk about consulting or talk about being a student or talk about being a college student, talk about how you shifted from school to college, etc., etc., right? Or talk about the things that I love, which include medicine, the internet, science at large, some sports, F1, etc. And I realized that uh, everyone around me, including myself, is so multifaceted and so different in their own personalities and in their own mediums that it is very important to realize where the changes happen and why those changes happen, and hence the topic pivots. This conversation will have no flow, or rather a lot of flows, considering the pivots that I will have. And I have, of my own self, had a lot of pivots in my life, and I would be talking about those. But in general, what are pivots and why they are so important? So, pivot by definition means whenever you're changing the direction or changing the flow of a conversation, of a thing, of a momentum. And why they are important to me? Because um, personally, as someone with ADHD, I find myself doing a lot of different things at the same time. And sometimes it is manageable, sometimes it is not manageable, sometimes it is a lot of fun to do those things, sometimes it's just not. And why pivots become really important as for myself is because when I'm doing one thing, I have my complete focus on that thing, and I have probably been procrastinating that thing for the last 1 week. But when I finally get to do it, I will complete it and then move on to the next thing. But sometimes what really happens is that something else catches my eye and I go on to do that thing instead of completing the previous one. And that might be seen as something that is wrong or something that is um, non-directional and something that is non-focused. But find it's they are creative. Considering the from which I am from, like economics and finance and all the things that I'm doing, I a lot of times feel the lack of creativity and the lack of fluidity in my own nature. And the small things that I pick up on and the small things that I sort of learn in those pivots are something that really enrich my day and make me feel better about myself and still remind me that, hey, I still have a right brain which I can use. So that was something of why pivots are important to me, right?
Okay, hang
But
on just a second.
yeah.
Shikhar, just for the sake of others, please
Mhm.
explain what ADHD means to you and in general. Just very quickly, not technical, but what does it
Right.
mean in your daily life and what does it mean
Mhm.
to you so that people know
Right.
what's driving you. Not everybody knows ADHD, so please explain.
Perfect. So, ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. which means that you are lacking some hormones, especially dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter, and hence you do not get equal amounts of joy and pleasure and satisfaction from doing things which you are supposed to be doing, and rather are hyperactive, which means your fluid state or your flow state, which is said in a lot of books, including Ikigai, keeps on changing. What that also looks like is a lot of restlessness. Like right now, I'm shaking my leg. You probably can't see it. And that also looks like anxiety at times. It also looks like panic at times. It also looks like complete focus and complete flow state for hours without any disturbance, anything bothering you. So that is what ADHD is to me personally. And why it becomes really important in my life is because I have sort of entered academia now. And when we are talking about Delhi University or any sort of undergraduate program in India, it is highly rigorous with regards to the academics and the GPA and the courses that you have to do. There are 7 classes that I have to take this year, rather each semester. And with ADHD, it's not really the best. It's not really the most helpful, considering that there are other things that I want to do. There are other things that I want to explore at large. And again, why ADHD comes into play and why it comes into play so often in my own life is because I find myself doing things which I do not like at times, and I find myself not doing the things which I actually like. And why that has become very crucial, and why that is something that I really want to talk about is because when we are really talking about the things that a person should be doing and a person should not be doing, I believe that is highly subjective. As long as it adheres to a basic code of morality and conduct and you're not hurting anyone, I think everyone should explore everything at least once. And that is my own personal philosophy that I want to live by. And just going back to my topic pivots before we deviate further, why this topic has become the central theme of this sort of podcast, but also of my life, is because I don't know if Sir knows this or not, but I actually had pre-medical sciences in school in 11th and 12th. So I wanted to be a doctor actually. Uh, I had seen a lot of Grey's Anatomy, and my mother is a zoologist. And I just knew a lot about the human body, and I just read Ganong's medical journal at night for fun. And I think that was one thing that I really wanted to do, which was become a doctor, and not for the monetary purposes, not for the helping other people purposes either. It was simply because I was fascinated by the field, and I was fascinated by the things that you could do as a doctor and as a medical professional. Um, Unfortunately, what then happened was that there is an exam which is called NEET in India that you have to give to become a doctor, and I unfortunately did not score enough to become that. Why again that happened is because of the major pivot of this century, which I would like to call COVID-19, and that pivot ruined my own pivot of sorts. Um, Again, just sort of going back, why I wanted to become a doctor was because, again, fascinated by the human body, found that there are a lot of new things that are still to be learnt about, yet to be discovered, yet to be found. And in general, that it is one of the most charitable and giving fields that you can be a part of. And my ADHD self sort of really liked that you could just be at a place for 18, 19 hours uh, with no disturbance around you, with no one calling you, with no one really pointing out things that they should be pointing out or shouldn't be pointing out. And the pristine white walls of a hospital and the glaring white light of a surgical room really enthralled me for times. And again, brain was something that I was really excited with as a kid and really wanted to become a neurosurgeon. Even if someone now tells me that, hey, we'll give you a chance to be a neurosurgeon for a day, I would take that without thinking twice. But regardless, could not become a doctor. And one thing that I really found where my ADHD sort of became a superpower rather than something that was stopping me was that I did not feel bad about it.
Yeah,
Sure, there was some remorse, there was some sort of disappointment in myself. There was some sort of answerability that I had towards my parents and towards my peers, but I never felt bad about it. I was always okay with it and always have been, honestly. So, uh, was burnt out, however, because it is not an easy exam and it is a very vigorous procedure of 2 years at coaching institutes, at home, and in general was just burnt out. So gave CUET, did not score very well there either because of the burnout and ended at Motilal Nehru College, doing economics as a major. And honestly, I think a lot of students, what they really do is take a lot of drop years, multiple drop years, and they take re-coaching for one more year, and they just keep doing it. And honestly, a lot of respect and love for these guys because I could have been one of them. But why I did not want to do it was simply because I had sort of lost the faith in myself to clear that exam at large, and also understand the very simple fact that your interest is always not something that you end up doing
mm,
or you are even good at,
yeah,
which is why ended up here. I'm doing economics right now. I have a very deep interest in finance and how money moves and how the world works on the basis of capital. But even that is a very important story that we should sort of get into. So, again, this is a child that had no idea about what college is like, but also what economics, finance, and all these fields sort of look like.
mm,
So, when I entered college, I sort of stuck to the things that I knew to, which included speaking, which included debating. And also, there is an option of taking something called a value-added course, and I took science and society in that value added course just so I could sort of stick back and stick to my roots and sort of
mm,
get to where I
mm,
know and just get a bit marks so that
yeah,
I can sort of relate with what I'm learning.
yeah,
But very quickly, I realized
yeah,
that economics is fascinating.
yeah,
And thank you to my professors, honestly, Vandana ma'am, Meenka ma'am, all of them. And the fact that it is fascinating is not because of the way they were teaching it. Of course, that had an effect, but also because it is a science at the end of the day. It is manipulative, it is social, it is subjective. However, it is a science at the end of the day.
yeah,
So I again ended up learning the laws, I ended up learning the assumptions, the conjugations that there were to be learned. I took it as a science at large, even though Delhi University promotes it as a BA program, which means Bachelor of Arts. I took it as a BSc.
okay,
So while the other students were learning the theory of economics, I really sort of pushed myself deep into the end of how the mathematics and statistics of it work and what is really the understanding behind why economics work. And that realized into fading interest from college very soon, from fading interest from the classes, but also of the course material that is being promoted right now. For someone who wants to take it as a humanitarian subject, as a social subject, I think it is one of the greatest and the flagship program of Delhi University that one can take. But for someone who wants to learn why this happens rather than how it is happening, I think learning it on your own via online sources, via other books, via the chapters of the books that have not been included, reading those is something that is very important. So, how it really started was, just for a bit of context, the books that are prescribed to us are also the books that are used in good schools like Harvard, Stanford, etc. And I, being of the inquisitive and curious nature that I am, I sort of went ahead of syllabus and saw the chapters which were not included in the first and second semester. And I found those way more interesting, honestly, because they included topics like loans, how the money market works, how the capital market works, and how the economy sort of comes into play there. And sure, the national economy and the macroeconomics, the microeconomics are still something that I want to learn and hold very dear to. But in general, how the system sort of works and how the world works with regards to money, which is the constant, as they say, how it really works and what the prices adjust, like what the cost adjust, everything. I think that really became the central part of my life. So around the second semester, I saw another pivot, which went from a lot of debating, a lot of uh, just doing honestly random stuff, along with debating and speaking being a very central part of it, being a very core part of it. To me, finding that, hey, I actually like economics the way I'm studying it. I like finance at large. Fields like private equity, investment banking really excited me and still excite me. And this is something that I want to sort of make my future in.
Okay.
And con- considering the degree that I will get now, might be more possible than being a doctor. So that was the pivot that I took. And thankfully, there is a new trend within Delhi University and other good colleges of India, which is of student-run consulting cohorts. And what they really do is that they reach out to non-profit organizations, NGOs, small scale, even scale startups. And they're like, hey, we are students, we are learning consultancy, which includes various fields like HR, management, strategy, operations, finance, marketing, everything. Um, so they approach these companies and then they sort of say, hey, whatever life project you have going on or any sort of problems that you are facing, uh, give us the work, we'll do it for you at either a low cost or a no cost. So a pro bono or a low bono project, ideally. And thankfully, there was a society called 180 Degrees Consultancy in my college as well. And I joined that. And that is where I really realized that this is exactly what I want to do. And this is exactly what has been waiting for me, sort of. Because what really happened was that these things came naturally to me rather than the thing that I wanted to learn about, like the brain and the body. I had to learn those. I had to sort of understand those.
Mm.
And these things came naturally to me. And I honestly owe a lot of it to being an ex-science student because
Yeah.
as a science student, I think
Mm.
a lot of things just come analytically to you,
Mm.
especially the things which make a lot of sense numerically. I think
Mm.
they come very naturally to someone with science. And
Yeah.
I found that happening here.
Yeah.
So a lot of number crunching, a lot of frameworks that were to be built, a lot of core consulting that was to be done. I could do
Yeah.
that very easily.
Yeah.
And I actually liked the flow of it and I actually liked how I was doing it
Yeah.
and was, of course, getting appreciation from my peers and also seeing personal growth here. So, yeah, took the pivot into consulting at large. And that is sort of where I am right now in life.
Okay.
And that is
Yeah.
the major pivot that I saw happening in my own life.
Yeah.
And that is where I sort of see this going. But honestly, um, again, to get into finance and to do it as a career, I would either require an MBA from a good B school, or I would require a CFA
Yeah.
degree. And again, I think these two are again competitive exams. I am scared of competitive exams right now. I'll say that. I'm honestly scared of them. I do not like competing with a lot of people who are way smarter than me. But God forbid I get rejected again. I will see it as a redirection rather than a rejection. And
Okay.
that will be the another pivot I have.
Well, let me jump in here for a minute.
Right.
I have talked to, or I've heard many young people who never got an MBA or a CFA,
Right.
but managed to get a job in the financial sector just with a BA in economics.
Hmm.
And what matters is that you show your ability to learn. So I
Right.
think you shouldn't really feel I'm giving you a pivot.
Mm.
That pivot away
Right.
from CFA and MBA for the time being. Pivot towards
Right.
looking for a job in a company. There's a lot of okay. The job might be in risk. Okay, so you understand risk, financial risk,
Of
laying
course.
out the risk uh, parameters or the modeling or something.
Mm.
Uh, So
Stress testing.
there are jobs, I will say,
Mm.
in India today. I have talked to people.
Mm-hmm.
I asked them, why didn't you get a master's degree? They said, there's no need. You learn on the
Mm.
job. And you've already shown
Right.
that you read chapters on your own, right? You read chapters on your own and you find them interesting and you can
Right.
absorb it. So today, the information is all available to you anyway online.
Mm.
If necessary, you can take a course or two online, but mostly there's a lot of
Right.
free information available, as you know.
Right.
You can
Right.
simply absorb it and apply it. And where you are working, you will first be inculcated into the way they do things. Pick that up, go along, do
Right.
it. So that's an
Mm.
option, I would say.
Right. Right.
Okay, I wouldn't have been able to say it if I had not heard some young people say that's what they are
Mm.
doing. This is the advantage of these Vidpeds that you hear what young people are doing, and I say, "Oh, it
Exactly.
can't be." No, 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 no. It's
Yep.
okay. We can just do it. We're doing it. What are you saying? So I say, okay, I'm not saying anything. You're doing it. So good. So I'll give you that information that if you're serious about it, and then you can say after 2 years, you can even make some money, save some money, and then you can even pay for your MBA because MBA is
Right.
money, right? So how are you going to pay
Right.
for it? Are you going to ask your parents to pay? Or you're going to say, look, I worked 2 years, I made some money, I've saved some, I'll take a loan, I'll do it. So that's a feasible
Right.
pivot. Okay.
Right.
And more broadly speaking,
Mm-hmm.
today's India has so many options open now that you can pivot. In the old days, there was no option. You couldn't pivot. You were, as I wrote
Yes.
on LinkedIn, you followed the safe and linear path. Safe and linear. Okay. Whether it was at work or in marriage or whatever. You married once and
Right.
you're stuck with it. Right?
Right.
There's no girlfriend, boyfriend, nothing. Right? Just get married, you are done. Right? And you
Mm.
got your job, you are done. Okay. Today,
Mm.
there's a lot of social options, there's a lot of economic options, and you have to think where you really want to be. And when you are as young as you cannot know what you want to be.
True. 100%.
I mean, I just talked to one person who's, of course, not your age, over 30 years old, but he says, listen, I have been a filmmaker, I have been in
Mm.
theater, I have
Mm.
taught myself AI and ML, and
Right.
I'm doing all these things. So the possibilities in India are today many more than they were in the past. So keep that in
Mm.
mind. Okay. That's what I
Right.
want to add here. Okay.
Right.
Uh, Lucky, can you please hold on? We are still going with the previous Vidped. Okay. Just
Yeah,
come
sure,
to you
sure,
at the
sure.
time. Okay. All right.
All
Just
right, sir.
please
Okay, I will.
okay. So continue, Shikhar, please.
Yes, sir. So, within finance itself, I saw myself pivoting a lot as well. So, I entered finance because I saw that I was able to do a lot of, but also because it sounds very interesting. As someone in economics, finance becomes a term that is
Mm,
associated with seriousness, but also with a lot of money in your own hand and a lot of being cool because everyone has seen The Big Short, The Wolf of Wall Street, etc., etc. And um, my dad being a trade advisor himself, finance was something that again I saw that I could sort of lean into and get a lot of guidance in as well.
mm,
But when I entered finance, I was really interested in investment banking as an option. And then I saw it pivot into a lot of private equity. Then I saw it pivot into a lot of VC because I did an internship at a Series A startup, and there were regular VC catch-up calls that we had to take. There were regular rounds that we had to raise, and had to do a lot of conversations regarding venture capital at large and which funds we should approach and why we should approach them and at what valuation they will agree to sort of investing in us. Then from VC to very recently, I've gotten into wealth management and financial advisory at large, which includes family offices and high net worth individuals and all. So, uh, sort of crux that I'm giving into my own story again and again is that pivots are normal. And I think you should cherish the pivots that one is going through because if you sort of stay rigid, you forget that you are a human. And I have seen that happen to a lot of people. Unfortunately, they sort of stay at one thing again and again. And I believe there are two schools of thought here. One could really, which would sort of talk about it as willpower and being
Mm.
man and machismo, but one that would sort of take this simpler yet more understanding and more lenient route of life where it sort of takes you go ahead and make the best out of it. And I think I have changed my own school of thought from the previous one to the new one because life is something that is very rare, and the fact that we are here on this blue speck of dust that we call earth is honestly one of the rarest things that we could ever imagine and ever even get. So
Mm.
to make the best out of your privileges, to make the best out of the resources that you have,
Mm.
whatever they may be and
Mm.
whatever they may not be, I
Mm.
think understanding your pivots and
Mm.
flowing along with them is the best thing that someone can do. And I'm glad that I did that. And
Okay, let me add
like,
my own pivots here.
sure,
This whole channel is a pivot for me
exactly,
because I'm an
exactly,
economist, right?
right,
And all my life I have been an economist,
right,
right? A professional economist. They don't teach this thing in economics, right?
right,
It's a
right.
pivot.
They should,
Uh,
they should,
no, they don't. But I mean, I studied long ago, and even then,
right,
I'm a professional consultant. I'm a professor at times. They don't tell you how to start video channels in that. And
right,
I was a consultant for the World Bank and this and that. But even there, I used to change the field I was in.
mm,
And
exactly,
currently, I have paid work in the US in the economics legal arena, which I had not even
mm,
known 5 years ago. So
exactly,
that's a pivot to me. And this whole channel
right,
is the pivot. Where is it coming from? It's coming because
okay,
I can do the pivot. So
mm,
pivoting is actually lifelong. If you are a pivot type person, and you know you are a pivot type person when you are a pivot type person, then you do it for a long time. You don't say, hey, I
right,
finished all my pivots when I was, by the time I was 25, now I'm in a straight line. Maybe not
right,
so much like this and that, but still
mm,
not in a linear fashion.
right,
Because it can hardly be said to be linear. Because where is this channel for young people in India coming from? Nowhere.
mm,
Right?
right,
It's coming from nowhere. It's just coming because it's a pivot for me. It takes 3-4 hours of a day for me.
right,
It's quite a time. So, but it's a pivot. So pivots are very
right,
important. And in this world of new technologies, new ideas, new options, pivoting, I think, is simply a way of saying take advantage of the new opportunities as they come.
exactly,
Right? Okay.
exactly.
Let me stop talking. Go ahead.
No, I think I'm so glad that you resonate with this topic and that you had something to add of your own because it is always the destination which is seen and not the journey.
Yeah.
And I have been a person who sort of cherishes the journey now, not knowing where the destination is. Uh, and I think that is again something that is very important to
Yeah.
know. And why that is important and why everyone should be like that personally
Yeah.
is because you become really understanding and empathetic once you understand that someone else might be going through their pivot,
Yeah,
be it positive or negative.
yeah,
And why sort of understanding that is also important is because when you yourself are going through a tough time or a very good time, you sort of need people around you. Uh, and that is a very simple way of life. Whenever you're in neutrality, you sort of are living a day repeatedly. But whenever you are in a very good time or in a very bad time, you have new experiences coming to you every day. And humans are a social tribe. Like, however much we want to isolate ourselves, however much we want to sort of be secluded, I think having people around you and having someone around you is very important.
okay.
So being empathetic and being understanding of others' pivots becomes really important as well.
Okay. Yeah. It's a wonderful philosophy to have.
Right.
And you have already, I think, found your key pivot. Okay. It's a very important area. We certainly need people in the financial sector who are innovative and creative. India's financial sector has not really caught up. It's still,
Right.
it has successfully reached people in large cities, but it's not trickled down to the lower parts. And there's a lot more
100%.
innovation and work to be done. Uh, I'm glad that you are thinking of it.
Right.
So I'm sure you will find a way to make money and still help others. Okay. Any
Right.
last thoughts from you?
Yeah, would just like to end with the fact uh, that the most number of three-pointers that were shot in basketball were after a pivot. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Shikhar. It was a pleasure
Thank
to
you, sir.
listen to you. And let's end it here. I'll be back with
Okay.
another young person, an expert, and I want to talk to you a bit offline.